admit it. I was taking the coward road out right now. However, I wasn't ashamed. Not one bit. I needed to do whatever I could to stay out of Caleb's arms. That was a dangerous place for me. Right now, I'm hiding in my room behind a locked door. I know that seems a little childish, but the man had skills. He touches me in a way that makes me turn to butter in his hands, and I refuse to prove Shantae right. I will not fall for the man that murdered my brother, no matter what. When we left Mama Rita's, we drove home in silence. I had so many things to ponder, one of which was Rashid. He hated me. There was no other words that could describe how he felt about me. He hated my guts. He thought that I had gotten pregnant by his brother on purpose just to trap him. Please, if only he knew. I would be willing to do anything to get rid of his bully of a brother. I knew girls like that. They thought getting pregnant by a man would miraculously make him fall in love with them. But that was just tomfoolery in my opinion. If a man didn't love me for me, then I loved myself enough to walk away. There were too many fishes in the sea to settle for a piranha. I peeked at Caleb out the side of my eye. Now him, he was no piranha. He was a damn shark. Before he knew about Eve, he had gotten it into his mind that I was going to play the role of his whore for 2 years. After he found out about Eve, he said the game had changed. And I guess it had because now I was his wife. So technically, he used our child to trap me. For the life of me, I can't understand why. A man like him could get any girl he wants. Seriously, he was that fine. So why had he gotten it in his head to trap me? Dang, what part of the game was that? Whatever the reason, it wasn't working for me. Keturah said that I could get the marriage annulled, but I think it was too late for that. There had to be another way out of this situation. But until I figured out what it was, I knew for sure I had to do whatever I could to avoid sleeping with him again. That would only complicate things even more than they already were. And I figured the best way to avoid that, foolproof, was to never be alone with him. Something happens to my willpower when it's just us in a room, especially when he's looking at me with those wanting eyes of his. And I'm not made of steel. I'm a flesh and blood woman, and there was only so much I could handle. So I decided to take the coward's way out. Caleb carried a sleeping Eve upstairs and laid her in her crib. She was out. I changed her diapers and put on her PJs, and she didn't even budge. I could hear Caleb next door in his room moving around. When I was done with Eve, I all but ran to my room, shutting the door and locking it behind me, grinning as I leaned my head against it. Yeah, I made it. I would just wait him out. When he stopped moving, then I would go take my shower. You know, this could work. I walked over to my dresser and very carefully took off my beautiful bracelets, and I laid them on it before slipping out of my clothes and putting them in the hamper. After putting on my robe, I picked up my Plumbing for Dummies book and settled in while waiting for Caleb to fall asleep. Judging by the sounds coming from his room, though, I was probably going to be waiting a while. His phone rang a few times, and it sounded as if, it sounded as if he was in a meeting or something. I couldn't hear him clearly, but I'm pretty sure he was talking about auto part shipments, and I could also hear him typing on his laptop. Goodness, it was 11 o'clock at night, and the man was still working. However, after about an hour, everything had gotten quiet. I think he was asleep. Perfect. I cracked my door and eased out into the hall before tiptoeing down the hall past his room. Right when I passed Eve's room, the floorboard creaked. I came to a stop, closing my eyes and waiting to see if I heard any movement from him or Eve. Cause Yah knows the last thing I wanted to do was wake the baby. It would be a long night if that happened. When after a moment I heard nothing from either room, I continued down the hall. The second floor bathroom was around the corner with the 4 bedrooms that really needed some serious repairs. My old room was one of them, and it was my favorite room in the entire house because it had a big round window with the perfect view. I could see the top of the trees out front. When I was a little girl, I used to sit in my window seat and pretend I was in the jungle. Smiling at those old memories, I turned the corner and came up short because the bathroom light was on and the door was closed. Before I could turn and hightail it back to my room, the door opened and Caleb, still slightly wet from the shower and only a pair of basketball shorts, stepped out. My eyes nearly bugged out of my head looking at him hardly dressed. Goodness gracious! I put my hand on my chest. I had forgotten just how ripped he was. More so since the last time I saw him. No doubt from his time in prison. I tried to turn away. I did. But his body was a sculpted work of art and it seemed to attract my gaze. "Thought you was gonna be too chicken and come out your room," he said in a dangerously low, sexy bedroom voice that started working on my resistance instantly. I took a step back, and then another. Had I known you wasn't asleep, I would have never come out at all. I had no idea why I just told him the truth. His eyes slowly raked over my body, taking my short robe that left most of my thighs and all of my legs exposed. After I had it tied, I clutched it between my breasts so that none of me showed. However, when his eyes landed on them, he bit down on his lower lip as if he could already taste me. Goodness, I was becoming undone. When his gaze finally raised to my face, his hunger was clear. It caused something inside of me to twitch. I gasped. "So, you were hiding from me." He shook his head as he slowly walked towards me. "I thought you were a brave girl. Monica, the fearless." I took another step back, and then another and another. My mind screamed for me to abort this mission. I raised my head. I am brave, but I'm also smart. And some battles are better fought at a distance. I went to turn and run, but he moved so fast that I didn't get far in my turn before his arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me towards him. Oh wow, the heat coming from his muscled body was too much. I put my hands flat against his chest and I tried to push out his arms. "Caleb, let me go," I whispered, trying not to panic. You see, I didn't know who I was more afraid of, him or me. "Shh, baby, it's our wedding night," he pleaded, pulling me closer. I shook my head. "I can't do this. I can't sleep with you." Although I was no longer pushing at his chest, my hands, as if they had a will of their own, still rested against his massive pecs. "Why not? You're my wife. I'm your husband. And it's what we're supposed to do," he whispered. "I'm not ready." He frowned down at me. "Mom, we have a child together. We've already done it." He said this as if he was speaking to a special needs child. I nodded my head. "I'm aware of that. But it's been a long time and I was drugged that night. Did you know that?" The frown disappeared from his face. "You were?" Although he didn't let me go, he took a step back so that his body was not pressed up against mine anymore. "Yeah, I was." Oh, goodness. His aggressive energy was dying down. That was good, because aggressive Caleb was a challenge to deal with. "I thought you was just tipsy or something." I shook my head. "Nope. Somebody had slipped me a Mickey." "Who?" It was something about the way he said that reminded me of that poor man that had punched me. I don't remember." I lied. He narrowed his eyes at me. Why did it feel like this man could see straight through to my soul? It was like he could peer deep down inside me when nobody else could. "So, you don't even know if you like my touch," he grumbled. "I like your touch very much." But he didn't have to know that. I shook my head, putting on my sad and vulnerable face. "I don't think I like your touch. I don't even remember that night, and I'm afraid. So, can you please just give me some time? I have never been with another man, and I feel like a virgin." He chuckled, pulling me closer so that our bodies were pressed up against each other's. The second part of that pretty speech I believe, but you lying about the first part. Gently, he palmed my cheek before rubbing his rough thumb scandalously over my lips. I think you like my touch. I think you want my touch, and you just too chicken to admit it. His head slowly lowered towards mine, and his deep midnight gaze seemed to hold me in a trance. This is what I was talking about. My wheel was going down fast. Damn, this man was like a sexual magician. But like I told you before, I'm a patient man. When I make love to you again, it will be because you asked me to, he assured quietly. I almost laughed in his face. Yeah, right, he'll be waiting till hell freezes over for that. I couldn't help the smirk that broke through, though. Brother, the day I ask that of my enemy will be the day I put on a chicken costume and moonwalk down the street. A smirk appeared on his face and my spidey senses started to rise. Bet, you got a deal. When you ask me to make love to you, and you will, I'm going to lay you down and I'm going to love you in a way that you would never have to wonder if it was the drugs that made you respond to my touch the way you did that night. And then the next morning, you're going to put on that chicken costume and stand outside my shop with a sign promoting King & Sons Restoration. Oh, hell yeah, a challenge? Boy, I love challenges. And what do I get if you lose and I don't break character and beg my enemy for sex? He chuckled. What you want? This could not have happened more flawlessly. I raised an eyebrow, looking him square in his eyes, because I didn't want him to mistake me in any way. I want a divorce. At first, he didn't respond. You see, his mind was like a calculator. I was dealing with a shrewd businessman here. If I sound phenomenal, you don't beg me to take you, I'll give you your divorce. He rubbed his thumb across my bottom lip again, as if begging for interest. I had to force myself not to open my mouth. But when? He chuckled again. I mean, if I make love to you, you're mine. No more talk of divorce. See? Do y'all see what he did there? I told you. A shrewd businessman indeed. But he didn't know me at all. I live for challenges like this. If we make love, and I do mean if, it will be because I have foolishly fallen in love with you. And at that point, I will probably not want a divorce. But you see, I could never love the man that killed my brother, so you've already lost. The muscle began to tick in his cheek. He was angry, just like he was every time I brought up my brother, but I didn't care. He was a murderer, and I wasn't going to ever let him forget it. He gently stroked my cheek as he studied my face. He was standing so close I could smell the Dove soap he had just used in the shower. Okay, my little dancer, you got it. Let's seal the deal with a kiss. I bit my lip. Oh man. He couldn't do anything to me, right? I mean, he said he wouldn't make love to me unless I asked, and I wasn't going to do that, which meant I was safe. He chuckled. Do you know that your every thought shows on your face? Right now you think it's safe, because no matter what I do, you'll never beg for my touch. Poor little Monica. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. He pulled me closer and lowered his head, taking my mouth in one swift movement. I was so startled that my lips parted in a gasp, and his mouth took full advantage as it began to ravenously rob me of my senses. Oh my goodness. He took my hair in his fist, forcing my head to stay at an angle so that his lips could have their way with mine. The only thing I could do was hold on to his big shoulders as he plundered my mouth. This man's kiss was so erotic, it made me clutch my thighs together. I moaned, getting swept away in his storm. Images of the night he made love to me with the same fever floated through my mind, and that fire I had been so afraid of was lit in my belly. This fire made me want to throw caution to the wind. It didn't care about my pride, and it didn't care that he was my enemy. It wanted what it wanted, and what it wanted right now was for Caleb to make love to me like he had done that night, thoroughly and without mercy. You always taste so sweet, he whispered as his hungry mouth lowered to my neck just below my ear. When I was locked up, I dreamed of taking you over and over again. His ravenous growl was causing me to need. I needed. I brought my hand up to the back of his neck, pulling him closer. His hard body felt so good pressed up against my soft one. He lifted me off my feet and I wrapped my legs around him. I moaned when I felt his need for me. I want you so bad. Why, baby? Why are you forcing me to wait? The whole time he whispered his lusty words against my neck while open mouth kissing my skin. He rotated his hips, driving me wild. He took my mouth again, plunging his tongue between my lips in the same rhythm as his hips. That fire that he had lit earlier was now a burning inferno. I needed a release or else I was sure to explode. His mouth was back on my neck, sucking strongly. My moans were getting louder. I wrapped my arms tighter around his neck. I was getting ready to. He pulled his head back and looked down into my eyes that were now just as hungry as his. I wanted to yell at him not to stop, but then he put his finger against my mouth, hushing me. I saw it then. Just underneath his lusty gaze, a smirk. His mouth slowly lifted in that smirk. I'll help you out this time and give you a courtesy pass. His intense, dark gaze bored down into my very soul. But this is your only one. The next time, you're mine. My mouth fell open as he stepped back so that my legs could slide down his body. And then casually, as if he did not just leave this fire ablaze in me, he turned and walked away. You bastard, I said to his back as he headed towards his room. Yep, I've been called that my whole life, he called over his shoulder. I stood there for a moment, long after he'd gone into his room and shut his door. What the hell just happened? There were two emotions yelling inside of me, that of being unfulfilled and then that of embarrassment. I had almost come this close to begging him to release the pressure that he had built up in me. Wow, that was real low down to him. He didn't have to do me like that. So, I hope he knows what this means. This meant war. He wanted to play the game of teasing, did he? Tomorrow, I was going to show him how it was done. I'll call it Operation Now You Have Me, Now You Don't. With that settled, I took my shower and settled in for a good night's sleep. I was going to need the rest for what I had planned tomorrow. Mama! Eve yelled before she jumped on my head. Ouch, Eve! My muffled cry came from my pillow as her knees landed in my back. Dang it felt like I just closed my eyes. I tossed all night long because that fire he had started in me kept urging me to throw my pride to the side, get up, go across the hall, and beg Cato to make love to me. When I did finally manage to get to sleep, it was only to dream about him making love to me in one of those classic cars of his, straight up Titanic style. I turned over and I caught Eve just as she was making another dive on top of me. Got you, I told her before I started tickling her. She squealed at the top of her lungs. Shh, child, you're gonna wake up your dad. I brought my hand up to my lips. Oh wow, I can't believe I was about to say that. I mean, I know Caleb is her dad, but saying things like, you're gonna wake up your dad or go to daddy just made it seem as if I was in agreement. Which reminds me, today I was on a mission. Operation Now You Have Me, Now You Don't. He thought he was so clever, making me all hot and bothered while he walked away like he was a hero. I threw the covers back and I got out of bed. Two can play at that game, and I assure you, a man can't tease better than a woman. Heck, we invented the game. I went to my closet, opening it. Today's mission was going to cause for something special. I think the lady in the yellow dress would do just fine. Yeah. The thing about the yellow dress was that it was a conundrum. It buttoned up the front and had a really cute belt that tied in a bow around my waist. What made it a conundrum was the split that went up the right side of it that played peekaboo with my legs as I walked. This dress was modest, unless I wanted it not to be. So, okay. Maybe I was being petty, but my pride had taken a blow last night. So at certain points today, my yellow dress was going to prove to be very immodest. I needed to reverse the energy. I needed for the ball to be back in my court. The way he left last night made me look like the desperate one. Nah, we couldn't have that. I wanted him to beg for me so that I could be like, sorry for ya, and then walk away laughing. Yeah, that was the plan. Still in my PJs, I made my way downstairs to start Nana and Eve's breakfast. I didn't know if Mr. Man was still here, but if he was, I guess I was starting his breakfast too. Y'all knows Nana would have it no other way. I shook my head, carrying Eve into the kitchen. Surprisingly, Nana was already up at the table drinking her coffee. I frowned. Who made you coffee? Nana didn't do much standing these days. She walked from her room to the living room to the fridge to take out whatever lunch I prepared for her and Eve to toss it in the microwave. But outside of that, she did very little standing. Caleb did on his way out to work, while he explained to me why he gave you a car. I paused and sitting Eve down in her high chair as my eyes flew to Nana. He did? Oh wow, what in the world did he tell her? He sure did. And it was like I said yesterday. It's a good thing I didn't listen to you and kick him out. Yeah. I eased Eve down in her seat. So, what did he say? Well, he said he saw that you took the bus back and forth to work and he thought the least he could do, since he had access to so many cars, was to let us use one. She chuckled. Heck, he even asked if I needed one. I said, oh, no, child. I ain't drove in years. Sighing, she sipped the last of her coffee. But it was nice of him to ask, she continued. I nodded. Yes, it was. I couldn't keep the relief out my voice. Wow, I almost had a heart attack. I didn't even want to imagine what the conversation would be like if I had to explain to my Nana what I had done that night I got pregnant. You see, after my brother died, she turned into a nervous wreck. Her health seemed to deteriorate rapidly. Having to tell her that I was pregnant with Eve was hard. Having to tell her I lost my scholarship to Juilliard was torture. And the bad thing about it was, she placed a smile on her face despite her disappointment and bravely told me, screw Juilliard if they couldn't understand how life happens. She said she would rather have Eve any day. I know she said that because at the time I had been so depressed. I told Nana I was curious about sex, so I let my boyfriend at the time break my virginity. And when he found out I was pregnant, he had skipped town. She said screw him if he wasn't man enough to raise his child. Together, she said, we can get it done. As I prepared their breakfast, I listened to her as she read to Eve. She hadn't lied. She had always been there for us. Hell, had even been there for me since my mother died. I love her so much, and I would do anything to stop her from feeling pain, no matter what it was. My goal from the moment I told her about Eve had been to make her proud of me again. I needed to bring joy back in her life, praying that the more I did, the better her health would get. So I picked up teaching her dance class at the center. I had convinced her not to worry about anything here at the boarding house. I told her that my 2 jobs would cover everything, even though they didn't even come close to handling even a half of what needed to be done. But that's okay. Since I was not working now, tomorrow I was going to get started on the repairs I had been reading up about. You're not taking my girl with you today, are you? She asked from behind me. With you always busy, Eve is all I got to keep me company. I shook my head. No, I'm not taking her with me. Good. I could hear the relief in her voice. Poor Nana. The kids had been a big part of her life. But ever since her legs had been upsetting her, she hadn't been able to travel to the center. So now Eve was her only link to what her life used to be. But this was actually perfect. For me to pull off Operation Now You Have Me, Now You Don't, I really didn't need Eve underfoot. I'll be back in time for dinner, I told her. She nodded. We'll be here. After making breakfast, I started on lunch while they ate, making extra for Caleb. I took my time with his lunch today, giving him double of what I had made before and making sure it was very pretty. This was all a part of my diabolical plan. Instead of putting his lunch in a plastic bag like I had done the last time, I put it in a basket, arranging everything perfectly. Then I went upstairs to get dressed. When I was done, I stood in the mirror admiring my work, turning around so that I could see the whole picture. I looked good. And I did too. This yellow dress went so well with my bracelets. The top of the dress was made like a peasant blouse, so if I moved my arm a certain way, the dress could fall off my shoulders very seductively. I smiled. I am so ready. After prying a screaming Eve's arms from around my legs and promising her that I will be right back, I made my way to the shop, making a mental note to stop by the grocery store and pick up something nice for dinner. I hated walking away from my daughter when she cried for me to take her with me. It just really made me feel like a bad mother. So, Miss Thing at the desk had a whole new attitude today. As soon as I walked through the door of the shop, she was all smiles. "Good morning, Mrs. Jacob," she called my way in a fake, cheery voice. I turned to look behind me, wondering who in the world she was talking to. There was nobody behind me. I put my hand on my chest. "You talking to me?" I asked as I approached the desk. "Yes, ma'am, Mrs. Jacob." I frowned. "No, dear. My last name is..." Oh, crap. Wait a minute. My last name is Jacobs. I signed Monica Jacobs on my marriage certificate just last night. She blinked up at me, waiting for me to continue my sentence. I smiled at her and said, "No wonder the attitude adjustment. I was the wife now, and I could probably get her fired." This nasty heifer was so phony. Even now, she was waiting for me to say, "Jacobs is not my name," so her messy tail could be messy. "Where's Mr. Jacobs?" I asked instead. "He's in the garage, so if you go through those doors, you'll find him around back." I nodded. "And, what's your name, Pumpkin?" That fake smile on her face was getting ready to crack. Keisha. Keisha. What a pretty name. "Can you run and get me some tea, dear, with a slice of lemon, honey, no sugar?" I didn't wait for an answer. I headed towards the doors that led to the garage. I smiled because I could feel her hateful gaze boring a hole into my back. "Oh, Miss Keisha, you and I are going to have a lot of fun." The garage was noisy. Tupac was playing over the loudspeaker, but you could barely hear the music due to the sound the power tools were making. Plus, somebody was banging the hell out of something. It reeked of gasoline and oil in this part of the building. There were several stalls with classic cars at different points of restoration. I was careful where I walked. I didn't want to step in oil and ruin my red flats. A little man slid from under the first car as I passed and looked up at me. His eyes grew wide as he took me in. He jumped to his feet. "Wow, pretty lady, how can I help you?" His eyes greedily raked up my body. "I'm looking for Caleb," I told him, smiling at the silly look on his face. "He's down at the end," he pointed with dirty fingers, his eyes still taking me in. I chuckled as I headed the way he pointed. As I passed the stalls, more of the men that did the real work around here, while His Highness sat in his nice comfy office in his fancy suits, checked me out. I even heard one of them whistle at me. Good. The lady in the yellow dress was having the effect I had hoped for. The pounding was coming from the end stall. Someone in a dirty jumper was under the hood pounding away at something. I looked around looking for Caleb. I didn't see him. Excuse me," I called to the man under the hood. He didn't hear me because he kept pounding. "Excuse me," I called louder. The pounding stopped, and my mouth dropped as Caleb stood up from underneath the hood. Good googly muggly. My word. If I thought the man looked good in a suit, it had nothing on the way he looked standing there in a dirty, grease-stained, full-body jumper that he wore only on his legs. The top part hung around his hips. He wore a dirty white tank top that lay beautifully over his muscled chest. It was something about him covered in the evidence of hard work that made him pure, uncut temptation to me. And the crazy thing about it was, I had been so caught up in finding out that Caleb not only ran the business but also worked on the cars that I did not notice the effect the lady in the yellow dress was having on him. He rose from under the hood, his eyes going from the top of my head slowly down my body to my red flaps. He licked his bottom lip the way he did sometimes when he looked at me. Although I just had at least 5 men check me out, none of them looked at me the way he did. It was as if he saw more than my outer appearance, as if he could see my inner self as well. "Damn, shorty," he put his dirt-covered hand on his chest. "You sexier than a 1971 Pontiac GTO Judge convertible." I grinned. I didn't know what kind of car that was he just mentioned, but judging by the look on his face, it must be a damn fine one. Perfect.